hate webinar. That's my official Zoom review. Before people get here, I'll just confirm that Dedham TV is going to be there live for the event in December. And they'll figure out, I'm going to report back to her after we tour on Thursday, just to give her a sense of like exactly what the setup will be, but they're excited and they do have the graphics. So hopefully they're starting to show that now.
Great. That's awesome.
Nice work.
Hey, Justin.
Hey guys.
Sarah, are you here or are you here and leaving?
I can stay until 8 o'clock or so.
Oh, okay. And Josh Donati is going to be late or not make it, depending. He's got another meeting. Sarah, I had misread your thing and thought you weren't coming until 8. So.
Sadly, bedtimes are no longer that early for us.
I remember when like the kids got that old and it was like, oh, you no longer have time after they go to bed. You just want to go to bed at the same time. Hi, Shah. Hi, Sharna.
Hi, Jessica.
Hey there. How you guys feeling after last night? I know for me, I am exhausted.
Yeah, I think I made it through barely, but Jessica, you were a trooper with your boom, your audio boom.
And Sarah too.
Yeah.
Oh, I missed
I had-
Sarah. I see her doing that.
Yes.
Extra steps, that's all.
Yeah, it was good exercise.
I had to come home and take a nap. Trying to get ready for tonight.
I know.
I look forward to the clickers next session.
Yeah, that's gonna be like
Huge.
That is going to be so awesome.
It'll take me back to dancing school days though, when the dancing instructor used to use clickers to stop groping and stuff like that.
Okay.
Shaw, you can dance. Wow.
Yes.
I love that. That's what you took away from that comment, Sharna.
Click, click, click. Oh, God.
Hi, Andrew. I think if you took that exact meeting last night with electronic voting, we would have been out of there by 9:30 or something. I mean, easily.
That was a little bit of a fiasco, but whatever. It was entertaining.
Yes, it was entertaining.
A nice job, Jeremy, and everything you did. Very good presentations. Really, really well done and well received. And you may have noted that between the the standing vote and the roll call vote, there was precisely a 10-vote swing on the Airbnb thing. Now,
Yeah, that was interesting.
let me just say while we're waiting that this is a message to you and Jessica, really, that there are some people around me who were not against the bylaw, but they thought it would be more stimulative to action by the planning board if they voted no rather than yes in favor of the bylaw, meaning that it would kick things into gear. I didn't quite agree with that actually, but nonetheless, it was a very interesting perspective.
You might, if there are people that you know specifically who did that, you might encourage them to email the board or email Jeremy to communicate to the board that, because I think there may be, I'm not clear on whether the planning board members took that as a sign that we should be studying it or that we shouldn't. So.
Oh, I mean, yeah, that's why I voted yes, because I think you had a clear indication it would have clearly followed up. But yeah, I think that's the biggest takeaway, is that there many no votes were simply designed to actually stimulate the planning board to action earlier rather than delay it.
That was my takeaway too.
Yeah, that's exactly why I voted the way I did, because I thought if we didn't give them what they wanted, they would be more inclined to act more expeditiously.
That's what, yeah, well, there you go, Sharna. That was repeated several times around me.
Yeah.
I really should have spoken to that because I think it might have helped. But anyway, I told Sharna last night that my impulses as a student agitator from the 60s, throw a bomb into the room, were overtaken by my instincts as a lawyer to actually have the law be what it is clearly stated as to what it actually is. So,
Well, I appreciate the debrief, everyone.
and I love the idea of increasing volume of Airbnb in our community. I think it would be great.
With regulations, of course. Absolutely.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
And
stay
some
tuned.
direct would have been great.
I don't know. I'd rather have more Airbnbs than a hotel around the corner from my house. So I'm all for Airbnbs.
Yeah, that's the truth.
All right, let's switch gears.
Okay.
I know we could talk for a while on this, it's fresh in our minds, but I want to be diligent with everyone's time. And of course, coming off a busy night last night, I'm sure we all want another 5-hour meeting. No, but obviously we want to take what we have before us here tonight seriously and get through a couple topics. And, hopefully we can get this, spend about an hour together, just combing through some stuff. And Josh is at the helm. Is that my screen or your screen, Josh? That looks, there we go. And I think we got everyone. How many of you? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Looks like we have 9. Thank you. And so meeting number 22. Thank you, everyone. Welcome. Happy November. Josh, if you can advance for us. And protocols, we're all familiar with these. Of course, we're being recorded. And I believe most of you are here tonight. And thank you, committee members, again for your dedication. Next slide, please. Our committee values and expectations. Next slide, Josh. And so short agenda, I mailed this out today. Sorry for the lateness on this. I meant to get this out on Friday. But we want to talk about the continuing engagement progress of encouraging folks to participate and leading up to our community celebration on the 4th. We want to talk to you about that and what we're doing and hoping you'll continue to spread the word. I saw an email from Nate today that he's going to be talking with the Conservation Commission tomorrow night or this Thursday. So thank you, Nate. So any of you that are part of any stakeholder group, anyone, please, help spread the word. That's how we get these folks to how we get residents and everyone in between to these meetings to participate at, what we're calling the community celebration. Also, we want to touch base on the draft chapter review. I believe we've gone through 3 rounds, ultimately 6 topics have been passed on to you for review. And then lastly, where we go from here. And with that, I'm going to pass it on to Josh. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Jeremy. Hi, everybody. So we'll just dive right in. The engagement progress that we've made, I wanted to touch on the focus groups that we had convened mostly in October. I think some maybe were at the beginning of November. But we got together 7 groups focused around various topics. Invited and included were town leadership from various departments and committees, leaders of allied organizations like Dedham Historical Society Museum, for example, and some others, and some local developers. And so these were, small groups, 4 or 5 people. Some were as small as 1 or 2 even, because not everyone ended up showing up. But nonetheless, they were very productive conversations. And we, I think I would characterize them the same as I've characterized some of the other feedback that we received, that there was some, I would say a few, I think, solid and sort of newish ideas that we haven't touched on as much in the master plan, like equity and digital access came out of a conversation we had in the focused around equity. And that was the digital divide. It's, so-called digital divide was a topic that is sort of known in the planning world, but hasn't shown up in our master plan. So that's something I think is worthwhile to include in our work here. But other than that, and there's probably a few other examples, did get some good ideas, but I'd say the other discussion was more focused on sort of sharpening our pencil, like some of the other conversations around the actions that will flow out of the goals and strategies, and making sure that those are relevant to the organizations that we spoke with and to the department leads and heads. So I think they're overall very good. And then the other thing I wanted to point out are the office hours, which we hosted. So we did have 2 office hours sessions that were following the October workshop, and they were very lightly attended. So we had, I think, only one person, maybe no, it was actually 2 people join us for the first one and 2 people join us for the second one. But overall, I think based upon those people joining us, we did end up talking to people for a lot of the time that we had allotted for those. And those were also very good conversations, even though they were lightly attended. The conversations we had were very good ones. So we spoke with former select board member Mike Butler, for example, who had a lot of very good insights for us, and a school committee member who had a lot of good insights as well. And then a resident in precinct 1 who had a lot of good insights around some of the recent development processes around Lauder Street and things like that. So good, really good perspectives that we hadn't necessarily heard before. And so that was good to bounce some of the draft planning and the master plan off of them as well and get their feedback. So that was just to kind of bring you all up to speed on some of the other activities that have been happening in the background. But the focus for tonight are the 2 that Jeremy really mentioned. We want to get everyone organized for the December 4th community celebration, which is our sort of our culminating community event for the process, and get you all organized, because we're expecting that the committee will have a role in that. And then we want to just touch base with you all to see how you're feeling about the draft chapters that you've been receiving. So here are the basics on December 4th. The event's running from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. It's a hybrid meeting, so we're effectively running 2 parallel meetings at the same time, one at the Dedham Middle School and one as a Zoom event. And people can attend in either fashion, and they will get very similar programming in either manner. So the focus, why we're calling it a community celebration, is really we're celebrating the release of the draft plan and kicking off the comment period for the draft plan. And so at the meeting, we'll be providing, try to, as much as we can in a planning meeting of this nature, create that celebratory atmosphere, provide an overview of the plan content. And then also with the kickoff of the comment period, we'll be releasing a companion online survey to help people give us feedback on the plan. So that will be a pretty simple survey where we'll be basically just parallel the draft topics, give people some ability to prioritize goals, and also add open answers in terms of their comments if they've have a thought or a question or found a typo or anything of that nature. And then that comment period will remain open for 45 days, and that puts us out to January 18th. I think that's a little bit longer though. So I think it fell around a weekend, so I just put it on the Monday because we're not going to close it on a weekend. So that the 18th is a Monday. Maybe it was a Tuesday because I think Martin Luther King Jr. Day might be in there. So whenever it was the next work day. So here's how the agenda flows. The in-person will be, we'll have to all remember what these kind of meetings feel like in person. The Zoom will be, I think, probably more familiar at this point, where you'll have, it'll start off where they're both the same. So we'll have some introductions from our co-chairs, a raffle drawing that we've all come to love at these sessions hosted by Michelle, and then a presentation by myself. And so that will actually be sort of simulcast between the Zoom and the in-person meetings. So everyone will receive the same exact content in that. And then also there will be a Q&A panel. And this is one of the details we wanted to discuss with the committee, is we're hoping the Q&A panel could be the center point of that panel could be you all as committee members instead of MAPC staff. Of course, we'll be there to help if there's a more technical question, but we would like you all to be able to engage with the audience some around questions or thoughts or ideas. I think one of the things we might want to do as well is have you all think about some initial comments and or questions if you had any, but a way for, if there's a slow start to the Q&A panel, the committee members yourselves could start the ball rolling on that, and have a reflection ready to go, or have a comment or your own feeling about the process, whatever it may be, to get that rolling. And then I think we'll have maybe Jessica and Sarah be sort of the lead in terms of organizing this, but in that setting, if a question were to arise, so we're looking at the space this Thursday, so we'll have a better feel of how it will actually set up physically, but we'll probably have you all sort of at the front of the room in some manner. And then if you feel like you have a contribution to a question or comment that's raised, we'll probably just kind of coordinate by showing each other a little wave of the hand or something, and then try to give everyone who wants to be a respondent in that moment the chance to do so. So that's the idea on the Q&A panel. We'll probably let that run for about 20 to 25 minutes. And then we'll from there shift, all of that programming will be about 1 hour in total. And then from there, the second hour will shift to more of an informal open house setup. And that will include in person, it will be a series of boards and materials, some iPads, maybe with some of the videos, for example, like the working group, outreach working group members had produced a while back. And so, content that we have available, including printouts of the draft plans that people can take home with them. And then basically the idea there is, as committee members, you'll be kind of just circulating around in that room. We'll have some of our staff there as well. Whoever's there with us can be asking questions and mingling, and we're expecting it might be as equal parts sort of social as it is content related. But there won't be a heavy focus on, getting detailed feedback on strategies, for example. It'll be more general and overview related. And then on the Zoom side of things, that will be a choose your own breakout room sort of setup, where because people can't, it's not productive to sort of carry a camera around and have people try to do the in-person open house. We're going to set up a virtual open house, which would include breakout rooms that will be staffed by committee members who are attending virtually and MAPC staff who are also attending virtually. And in those rooms, we'll basically invite people in and probably try to break it down by a few topics, again, as we've done in the past, where people might have the choice to enter a room where they might want to talk about housing, economic development, and land use, for example. And then we might have some of those materials available as a link that they could connect to, and a staff member that's able to talk about those things along with the committee member. So as we get your RSVPs to the event, which is an important next item, as we get those filled out and our MAPC staff filled out in terms of our understanding of who's where, virtual or in person, we'll then make assignments about partnering up for different rooms and get that laid out. So here's a little more detail on everything I just went over. So thinking that probably, starting from the 11 o'clock start time, by 11:10 or so, we will have a welcome and settle down, a welcome, opening remarks, and a raffle drawing occur within that first settling period. And then from there, our trusted co-chairs will hand the microphone over to myself, and I will give about a 20-minute overview, which talks about the process, some of the numbers in terms of how many people we've engaged, really touting the foundation upon which this plan is built, the very solid foundation in terms of the really excellent outreach that's taken place. And then talk about the vision and themes overall. just get into some topic highlights, like the big idea or the priority out of each highlight, just maybe one item or so from each topic. And then talk about how people can engage with the draft chapters, the comment period, and the online survey. So I'm hoping to keep all of that into about a 20-minute presentation. So it'll be pretty high level and pretty quick moving. That would put us out to about 11:30, but it'll probably be more like 11:35 or 11:40, after all the handoffs and things are done. Maybe we'll be moving right on time, but I imagine that we'll be in the neighborhood of 11:40 plus or minus. And then that would be the Q&A portion. So this would be an opportunity and we'll be facilitating questions and comments both from the in-person attendees and from the Zoom attendees. So we at MAPC will have staff on laptops at the session who are coordinating the sort of inflow of virtual questions. And then we'll also have people in the room. One of the things that we'll be trying to confirm on Thursday is getting a microphone that we can circulate around in the room so people are mic'd up so we can hear the questions well. And then we will, as I mentioned, if it's a slow start, we will invite maybe some of you to get us rolling, just to have some other voices besides those who have already spoken. And then if we start to lose momentum in the Q&A, we can decide to just let that format down and move into the informal setting. At the end of that session, whenever that occurs, either around 12 o'clock or maybe a little after, or maybe a little before. If it's really going well, we'll keep going with it a little bit. We don't want to cut it short if people have a lot of comments or questions. At the end of that, we'll have a final raffle drawing from Michelle that will kind of be the celebratory finale of sorts to close out that and enter us into the informal open house. And those will have boards assembled outside of the auditorium. Likely there'll be people can informally circulate between them and discuss with whoever they're wanting to discuss with, whatever topic they're into. And then, as I mentioned in the Zoom, we'll have some breakout rooms with the same materials, but they'll just be displayed differently. And people will be able to move between those breakout rooms as they see fit as well. So our immediate ask to you, I know that some of you have done this. I think 8 or so people have RSVP'd, so it's a good start, but we need to get an understanding of what everyone prefers. And so we're asking you to RSVP, and in that RSVP, which I didn't put the link here, but maybe I'll try to copy it into the chat at some point this evening if someone else doesn't beat me to it. But in the RSVP, you'll be asked if you prefer to attend in person or virtually. And it's really up to you and your preferences. I think so far we had about a 50-50 split, both amongst our staff and committee members in terms of that preference. So it looks like that will balance itself out about how it needs to. So we do want to have both represented in person and virtually, both our staff and you all as committee members. So during the open house, I guess the role is a little bit different. In person, you will be really more like plan ambassadors. On the Zoom, your ambassadorship won't really start. Thank you, Jessica, for putting that in the chat. So link's in the chat, you can go there now. The Zoom ambassadorship will really start during the open house session. During the preceding portions, well, I guess that's no, sorry. I'll back up to that in a moment. It'll start also at the panel for the Zoom attendees. So the ambassadorship that we're asking for is that you would be sort of greeting attendees, answering any questions or discussing or just sort of making yourself available. I think what we'll do is have name tags that identify each of you and ourselves. That's pretty clear who's who. And then in the breakout room, you'll be there to answer questions or greet people as they enter a breakout room, just kind of give them an invitation to engage with you. And then And then in either circumstance, if there's a question or something you don't feel comfortable handling, one of us as an MEPC staff member should be near enough by that you could refer that person to us and we would take it from there. So back where I stumbled a little bit, back on the split for the Q&A panel, what we're hoping to do, and we'll test this a little bit on Thursday as well, is what we're imagining are the master or the committee members who are part of the Zoom meeting will actually be projected at that moment during the Q&A panel. You'll be, our Zoom screen will be projected up onto the screen behind us on stage. So you would actually be present in that moment, and we would spotlight your video. So you would be the only heads visible in your screen. So just be aware that's kind of the plan, and that's what might happen is your head might be very large on the screen behind us on a stage. And so we'll figure that out a little bit on Thursday and see if that seems like a reality or a possibility. And so you would also, because that's the setup, if you're on the Zoom meeting as a panelist, you would also, I guess, flag us either by video or maybe by using the raise your hand function, and we'll keep track of that. If you want to also make a contribution in a response or answering a question or a reflection at the beginning to get us rolling. So we want both hybrid, both sides of the hybrid, so Zoom and in person, to be participating in the panel portion as well. And then the other near term.
Hey, Josh, can we pause right there?
Yeah.
And so hopefully you folks realize we're pushing the technological envelope on this, having this hybrid meeting. And thankfully, MAPC, I think, has experience. They obviously provided technical assistance for our first Zoom town meeting ever. And that seemed to go without a hitch. So I think we're in good hands, at least Dedham is, as far as being able to pull off this hybrid. I just want to open it up. Any thoughts from folks? Anything we're missing? Good ideas? What do you think? Y'all love it?
Just, if there aren't suggestions, I just wanted to share with everybody else that one of the reasons I'm really excited about this is I think it's a great way for us to model the values of the plan. So I think we've heard over and over in terms of governance and community participation in general, just how much people want to figure out a way to still going in whatever future we have in front of us, right? That there are ways to be in person, but that we want to make sure that we're doing so in a way that continues to get the robust participation that we've had during this kind of online period. And so I'm just really excited for this as a way to start to think about how to do that going forward for Dedham.
I agree with you, Jessica. I think it's a great way to model inclusion.
Sharon, I love that you could say it in 6 words.
Amen. That's one word.
Thanks, Shaw. And don't feel, we want to make sure people are comfortable about this. Everyone's comfort level is different. And we thought, let's try doing some semblance of an in-person through this master plan. And, in the end, we might not get a whole lot of folks in person. Zoom is obviously easy. And on a Saturday, we'll probably get a pretty good attendance, but we wanted to give it a try. And I think we spoke about that at the last meeting, that let's give it a try for some in person to close out this long community process. I think we all remember, was it almost a little under 2 years ago we last met in person? And so let's try it before it's done. So hopefully this will be successful, and we'll get some folks that, of course, this is a school building and therefore masks are required. So making sure that folks are adhering to that. We can't have food, unfortunately, in the premise, but we'll have some, drinks and some light snacks outside the building. Hopefully it'll be warm, maybe for December outside, where folks can mingle if they want outside and have some coffee and then come back inside. So just some other points. And obviously the middle school is a very spacious venue. So that hopefully that provides even for further comfort Yeah, Andrew, we're, because it's town property, I believe, and schools, the current policy is that masks are required for any folks. And I don't think we're going to get into checking people's cards or whatnot, and we're just going to let folks know that, you know, it's masks are required, and hopefully that's cool with everyone. All right. So hopefully you all use that link and are RSVPing, or if you already have, thank you. And of course, you know, please spread the word for us. I'll send the flyer again if you haven't received that tomorrow. Please, you know, spread it out. It'll be in the Dedham Times. I believe it's now up on Dedham TV. Maybe you'll see it on the screen tonight on their local programming. But we're on Facebook too. So, you know, I believe Michelle set up an event page. Feel free to share that with your Facebook networks. Obviously, that is a great way to spur activity and get folks to these meetings. And yeah, Josh is, thank you for that list. And I think this was my off the cuff list of folks in their respective committees or boards that they're part of. You know, pardon if I missed any, but this was just a list of some folks to reach out. You can go to the next slide, Josh. I think we've all seen this.
And we do have a Spanish version now available as well.
But by the way, Jeremy, I may not have indicated, I'll be there in person for sure.
Thank you, Shaw. Great to hear. And we will have a Spanish translation services available in person. And I believe this student would also be able to, if there's folks that are virtual too, be able to participate virtually for folks that would like Spanish translation services.
And I would just want to say too, that we have there's a lot of moving parts, obviously, that we're still working through in terms of the sort of 2 parallel meetings. So we have a master document that we're working on with our staff in terms of all those moving parts and protocols. And once these procedures get settled down, I think what we will share for you all as committee members and the roles is just a more simplified version of what you can expect, what we're expecting from you, and just sort of how you plug into this big system that's going on, with where we will have probably on site something like 3 or 4 laptops, probably at least 4 laptops actually. And, you know, there's be a whole lot of things going on. And so we'll just want to make sure that we're as coordinated as we can be for that morning. All right, any other questions or thoughts about the December 4th celebration?
And one last point on that, Josh, and it goes without saying, you know, we appreciate you volunteering your time on a Saturday. You know, it's one thing to ask you on a weekday night. A Saturday is obviously commitment. We all have busy lives. The holiday season's coming up, or, you know, I guess we're almost in it. So, you know, we appreciate if you can dedicate that time, and it looks like most of you have that ability. So, you know, we're just asking for 2 hours, and to talk with your fellow Dedhamites, Dedham community members, Dedham stakeholders. So thank you.
Josh, just one comment. You know, the chapters, as I've reviewed them, are so rich in many respects that the temptation is to get kind of rich in the presentations, particularly if you're utterly familiar with them. And this is not directed to you. I'm just telling you about all of us, really. And that's going to be a trick. And we're going to have to reflect a little between now and then about how to be succinct and pointed. And the second thing I think we ought to get prepared for, and I think Sarah and Jessica are extremely well suited for this, is to anticipate what I'll call political reactions. You know, we have a town that has a lot of, you know, as we've talked, history and tradition, and you hear a town meeting and everywhere else. Well, we don't need to disturb the work of Committee X because they do it well and they've been doing it well under good leadership for years. And we really don't need, recommendation Y. And I think of the public health chapter in particular. So I just think our co-chairs can be very helpful to, sort of preemptively think through and address the reaction that some will have about what they may view to be startling or new or different ideas for organization of town committees and the like. So,
If I may, Shaw, if you have comments on some of those that you think that might need some wordsmithing or, should be reflected upon in some of these documents. And I've made some of my comments to, Josh, I made comments on the discussion on the rail trail and in transportation that we might not need a, extended paragraph to discuss that. That things that might be sensitive or need, some time or wordsmithing, please let us know. I haven't made it to the public health version, but I'll definitely take a look at that. And that goes for everyone. Thank you, Shaw.
Yes,
You're
thank,
welcome.
thank you for that. And that's the perfect segue into the next part of the meeting, which we basically just wanted to offer the opportunity to do just what Shaw did, is reflect on some of the chapters that you've been looking at. It's one thing to send us your comments, and we really, really do appreciate those of you who have sent us detailed review and comments. But it's another thing just to give us overall, it's also useful to hear overall reactions or some verbal observations as well. So here's what has been delivered to date. On the 29th was the transportation, connectivity and housing, and then public health and livability on the 5th. And then last week was economic development, community facilities and services. In the presses as we speak are land use and zoning and community and natural cultural historic resources, and the introduction and the vision statement and themes chapters. So there's a lot still going on, but I think overall, I feel really good with the progress that has been made and the products that are coming out of this process. So I will say, actually, I don't know if I put it on the slide or not. Maybe I did. Oh yeah, so here we are. This is what we're still working on. I think we're doing a good job meeting the schedule we've laid out for ourselves and in getting this on that rolling basis. And we appreciate that you all have taken advantage of it and given us some early comments back. I think that the implementation chapter is the one that is at risk in terms of also being delivered. I think that was supposed to go out on next week, just before the holiday. So that one, I think we'll need some further time to finish up, and so we'll see what that means. But yes, so I think other than that, we're looking pretty good. So what are your, I'll just pause there and see if there are observations from what you've seen, maybe themes that go across all of them, or anything else that you'd like to relay to us.
So
I'll just say that I'm sorry, Justin.
go ahead, Sean.
I'll just say that I've been very happy with what I've seen so far. I had a chance to review the transportation and connectivity, as well as the housing and the public health, and sent Josh some comments. Some were just typos here and there, but others were in the wording around the environmental justice zones, things like that. But I'm very proud to have been a part of this committee with what I've seen so far. I think that it's a thorough and complete and well thought out piece of work.
I echo Sharna's comments completely, but and I made it through. So I've gotten through 4 of the 6. The 2 that were sent on Friday I haven't gotten through yet, but in reading a few of them all together, I found very helpful to get a sense of how the whole thing operates. And my initial thought had been, and I think it was a lot of my eagerness to sort of see like what is the plan and to see the action things, was like wanting the whole thing to reverse, because there's a lot of really good information sort of packed into the beginning of every single chapter. But reading through multiple at once allowed me to see like it's really helpful to have that background information, set the stage, what's been seen, what's been heard, and then to lead into the goals and the strategies and these sorts of things. I also really, I've been sort of amazed during this whole process, the amount that public health and livability has sort of tentacles in every other chapter or topic area, and that I thought that chapter, while probably the longest and the densest so far that I've read, did a nice job of commenting on that, of sort of saying how these things are interrelated. So I just as Sharna said, I think this is really coming along beautifully and reads as a whole so far, and each chapter is, hangs together really well.
Thank you both.
I've been holding back, but I'm going to speak. I think the chapters are very well written, and beyond that, readable. I think that Justin made an excellent point, and one that came to mind for me when I got to the public health and livability section about the interrelatedness of the various topic areas, and to the degree as we get to near a finality where you can kind of cross-reference or cross-reference, even in footnote to other sections. I think that will drive home the point that, all of these things are not discrete. They are part of a fabric of a whole. So I commend you for what I read in the public health and livability section in particular as well. I thought the public health strategist idea was really good. It may cause some, and I'll defer to our elected officials on this, but it may cause some comment, but it's a wholly warranted idea in view of a myriad of things that we have observed about equity in our town, and also about the challenges we have in our town in the areas of health from birth to grave, really. So anyway, I really want to commend you for all the fine work so far.
In light of last night's town meeting, I think there are quite a few things in here that are going to raise some eyebrows, in particular the housing trust as well. So, but I think it's like I said, it's extremely informative. It's thorough. Even when we get into the housing and it goes through the redlining, it's a lot of reality that some people are going to find uncomfortable to face. But I think it's a good piece of work.
Thank you, Sharna. And for those of you like me are still working through the chapters, keep plugging away, and please get your comments to Josh as soon as you can. Greatly appreciated. Any comments that you have. Thank you.
Yes, thank you all. We really appreciate that. And they are very helpful because we're all it's sometimes very interesting to see how a certain sentence doesn't land exactly how you thought it might. So it's good to hear that and hear your reaction to things. So that's a good checkpoint for us when we have our heads probably too far deep into these words and details. So moving right along, unless there's anyone else who'd like to jump in.
Andrew?
Andrew would, yes.
Really a question that I've been thinking about reading these, and it's a question for the committee. In terms of our role, it seems to me that there is a balance between trying to capture the sense of the community in the sense of getting a plan that will get public approval. And I viewed my role on this committee as being very much to try to do that versus driving the plan in places where our own particular policy preferences or thoughts might like it to go. And I think there's a balance there, and I have worried sometimes that as to where we may wind up on that balance. I don't want this to hit an iceberg and get sunk because we've gotten caught in our own thinking. And I don't know how other people are approaching this. I've been approaching this as attempting to capture the sense of the community. So I've tried fairly hard not to impose my own particular policy preferences on the document.
I appreciate that, Andrew, because it is a fine balance, right? Although I do think that, one of the things that's great about this committee is that we have people who bring a wide range of, both kind of professional and, and other expertise and experiences through their interests. And I think we need to be careful not to lose that. So I think there may be some cases where there's a policy preference and it's important for us to kind of disclose, this is why I'm invested in it, or this isn't, I think it's good for us all to kind of apply a double check around, is this my preference or is this what I hear from the community? But I also want to make sure that we're really taking advantage of the rich body of expertise that the committee brings. And, and so, for instance, just looking at people here tonight, right? Deekman and Sharna's knowledge around transportation, I want to make sure that we're getting the benefit of that professional expertise as well, right? And not just deferring to community, because I think there's some things policy things that are may be more reflective of people's view towards the world, and some are reflective of kind of current thinking, right, and best practice in a given area. And I want to make sure that we don't lose the latter.
I'm wondering if we return or think about at some point Sharna's point about just in reflection of town meeting last night. I think that there will be areas where there is some loud voices that are concerned about parts of the master plan, and how do we ensure that we are representative of a variety of voices when those voices get loud. There was some inclinations or some indication from last night's town meeting that there's great passion around some particular issues that are outlined in the master plan. And I'm a little concerned, and I wonder if there's a way we could anticipate and respond, or be ready to respond to some of those as they come up. I don't have an answer, but I'm anticipating and wondering how to be receptive and ready to respond to those.
Well, this is why I've tried to focus on capturing the sense of the community, because my easy answer to those people is, look, this is supposed to be a document that is at least most things to most people. It can't be everything to everyone. And there may be things in it that you may not particularly like, but it is a process. It is a document that is the process, that is the result of a process of compromise and discussion and data gathering. And be careful not to throw it out just because there might happen to be one subtopic that you personally might have an issue with. I don't want to lose the whole effort because people get wrapped around one particular thing.
And I think I agree. And I think that's why in some areas we need to be very careful about wording. And that was one of the things that I shared with Josh in the transportation plan when we talk about environmental justice population areas. It was worded as, this is just an example, as minorities comprise 45%, of this area. And that's why we need to make improvements and roadways to reduce traffic crashes, rather than say that minorities comprise 40%, just call it an environmental justice area, which encompasses not just minorities, but low income and a number of other factors as well. Because I think if we target one specific group, we're going to get pushback. So I think keeping some things more general, with the understanding that we're encompassing more than just a singular minority group or people of color, we're also encompassing socioeconomic status as well. I think that's important.
I know with some of you don't know my background. I was president of Dedham Youth Baseball for a lot of years, and anytime we had to make a difficult or potentially unpopular decision, there was debate that would take place in the meeting room, but we kind of had a rule of thumb that once the meeting was adjourned, when our board would go back out, into the world and talk to the public, we were a united front. We would have a united front and support the decision as a board or as a group. I don't think it works very well to be like, yeah, the board decided that, but I think this. So I think having this committee be united and support one another, I think is important. And then I think it might have been Jess that brought it up maybe 2 meetings ago, referencing or maybe tallying the amount of hours that have been logged to compile all of this, and all the work that has gone into it, and the efforts for community involvement. I don't think we want the community to think that there was a dozen people behind closed doors that came up with all of this. It was, there was a lot of effort put forth to try and get feedback from the committee. So perhaps we can have, a little bit of the background on what went into, getting to this point, the hours that went into it, and the various levels of community involvement, just to justify the end product in case people are unhappy with certain components of it.
Thank you, Dan. That is a good point. I believe at the intro, there will be quite a robust section on the robust community process that we've had. That can, I think what's been presented aren't just things we pulled out of our pocket. This is based on extensive community conversations and dialogue amongst the committee and the stakeholders of Dedham. What we could say over, thousands of points of input to this. And I think that's a lot to hang our hat on. And, for some folks, maybe in the community, that's not enough. But like you say, is if it's a collective front, which is what's going to need to get this approved by at the planning board and ultimately discussing with the town meeting as a whole. Yeah.
Well, I'm under no delusion that we're going to get those people who are inclined to get wrapped around a particular issue to back off. They're going to be wrapped around their issue no matter what you do. There's no solving that. The only thing you could do is present them less of a target than
But I agree with Dan's point of just,
Absolutely.
like having the committee itself representing sort of a unified front of support is important.
Absolutely.
I don't want to
Yes.
lose sight of that. That's a really good point that I hadn't thought about.
So can I ask-
I agree with you, Deekman, and I also agree with you, Dan, that, presenting a united front. And I also feel that this piece of work is filled with so much statistical as well as census information that we're just presenting goals around the factual information and what the data has been provided to us, as well as what we've heard from the community. And I think with those three sets of facts, you can't go wrong.
Yeah, and I would add, just with the expertise of a professional planning agency, right? That understands then kind of what are the future conditions that communities should be planning for. This conversation makes me just think generally, because kind of to Dan's point around, just as a process question, our committee has been, I think, very iterative and kind of ideas based, as opposed to, the kind of process, layers of process that you see in a lot of committees and Robert's rules and votes and et cetera. But I do think, we'll get to a point. I don't think it would be, obviously at this meeting or until we actually have, the whole plan complete, but there will be a period for the committee to come weigh in and vote. And I think that is going to be an important step at some point, right? Is for all of us to actually take an actual vote and say, we want to formally endorse this plan. And we would do that, I think, prior to town meeting. But I don't know if there's other things that you all think would be helpful in terms of, just finding ways to kind of support the plan and kind of have a group cohesion around how we talk about this and how we talk about, the suggestions and some of the data that's presented here.
I have one idea in that score, Jessica, and that is that we have seen in the past, and I think this plan would amply illustrate that if you do things or propose things that have cohesion to them and have reference points to lived experiences of communities around us in Eastern Massachusetts in particular, and you can show that there are economic benefits that actually flow from the plan by way of a better, stabler, more cohesive and amply funded community, you can take a little bit of the edge off of ideas that may strike some as being novel or perhaps, violative of it, in the more extreme view of it, of the way things have been done. And so I was much struck, for one example, by the factual foundation for showing that our community is less heavily taxed than some in our cohort around. I can't remember what the reference point was, but Josh, but you will recall, you've made that point. And much of what we will be proposing that could perhaps get some pushback, one of the answers is, well, guess what? We do actually know something about this, and it will help you in the end in concrete ways, right in your pocketbook. That's a thought I want to have us think about and project if we can. And I'll just give you a small example. There's a sentence that I happened to put in myself, but it had been discussed, but it didn't make in the plan about having a dedicated stream of revenue for construction projects, and that gave birth to the Robin Reyes Fund, and that took a lot of pressure. And the dedicated source came from health and hotel and meals taxes, despite what was said last night. That is still the case. And lo and behold, that has been a godsend to providing the financial stability, frankly, that you refer to it throughout the plan. And there are points like that that can be used to illustrate why this actually has a very pragmatic, concrete, advantageous benefit in ordinary life that is perhaps not visible if you're focused too heavily just on one idea that you don't happen to like.
Well, thank you, everyone. And so, Josh, I'm sure you heard everyone, and hopefully you'll work with your staff to ensure that that what's presenting here is representative of that. So, can you go to the next slide? No. There we go. Josh, you want to talk through the next steps?
Yes, so we've made it through a lot this fall. I mean, we did set out quite the workload for us, and I think we've been ably working our way through it. So that's promising, and we're nearing the sort of culmination here, which is to give you all the final bits of the remaining draft chapters and to get ourselves fully ready for the community celebration. That will kick off basically, well, maybe I'll pause there for a moment and just say also that in reviewing the comments that you all have provided to us and made, we will do a pass through, of course. That's the whole purpose of why we got you draft chapters in advance. We will do a pass through to integrate as many of your comments as possible. I do anticipate there may be a comment which might require, I don't know, I don't have a good example on hand, but a deeper reworking of a whole portion of a chapter, for example, where we might have to put that one on what I'm calling a known issues list. And so that it's not that it would not be addressed, but that it may not be able to be addressed before December 4th. That's just I think a pragmatic reality. So we will do our best to try to integrate all the comments that we received from you on any of the chapters between now and the 4th. But then we will have a point where we need to press print on the materials that we want to have on hand for the 4th. And that'll just be the trade-off that occurs there. So from there, what I do reference is that known issues list. So after the 4th, we'll have the survey open, the comment period open, and I would anticipate that we will have probably also occurring at that time some additional activity in our office, which is addressing some of those items which we either know that we need to get to or that you've raised that we weren't able to reflect in an updated draft. Then the comment period will close, as I mentioned, in the middle of January. And from there, we will compile all of the comments that have been received. And what we'll be looking for is there'll be sort of a hierarchy of comments that we receive. There'll be those which are very helpful typos or sentences that don't make sense, or whatever the case may be, that are simple fixes that are non-controversial. There will be a category of comments which are not that, which are content oriented, and what we'll have to do with those is collect them, see if there are overarching patterns, like everyone that we've heard from really doesn't like this part of the plan. And then we'll have to compare that to feedback that we've heard throughout the process and see how to weight that additional feedback. And then I think those types of items we will need to bring back to you all as a committee for discussion as well. And so that discussion we're anticipating would happen probably at a February meeting. So if we close the comment period down in the middle of January and give ourselves a couple weeks to try to organize around those comments that have been received, then that would put us in shape for a February meeting with you. You all will flow through into final revision. And then from there, I think it's basically a process which has been outlined but needs to be further refined, which would involve a more formal sort of signing off on what is considered close to final versions of the master plan from this committee, a handoff of sorts from this committee to the planning board for them to do much of the same in terms of a more formal review and adoption. And then so there will be some presence potentially of the master plan at town meeting, but that, you know, to what level and to what extent, that I think still needs to be determined a little bit. So those are that's the broad strokes of where this goes in 2022. I think we will have fitting in that context. I think we'll just have to figure out how exactly the implementation chapter, which I mentioned is the one that is probably going to fall off of this ambitious schedule a little bit. And we'll have to see how that slots back in and what that means for both your review, but also for review by the community. But I don't have a clear idea of how that will slot back in just yet, but it does look like it won't be ready for review by next Wednesday. Questions on that final push?
To Jessica, does that leave the planning board, in your view, ample time to react and review?
I think so, but it's something that Jeremy and I can talk to the chair about to make sure. And Jeremy has a better sense of all the projects are ahead of us as well.
Yeah, and Shaw, I think off the cuff, we're looking at probably, you know, a March or April presentation to them. Hope, you know, preferably March, not to go any longer, but it looks like that's where the stars would align.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's nicely timed if you think about it as part of a campaign for, you know, leading up to town meeting. So you're going to want to have, you know, starting in March, ideally, you know, in March and April, both some touch points, the planning board, and then some other committees, just to kind of build excitement and, you know, start to spread the ideas and awareness so that people, by the time of town meeting, people are fairly familiar with what the plan says. And we've had a chance to answer questions in advance.
Josh, it's really small point, but and it is about bibliography and index. Do you plan to have an index in the back of the volume, in which case you ought to start thinking about how you want to do that, by either word pattern or by, you know, name or topic or something. I mean, whatever it is that you want to have easily included in an index. And likewise in bibliography, I bet you've got a pretty substantial thing. I don't know whether you want to just rely on the footnote stuff or whether you want to put it all together at the back of the volume. So
yeah, we don't typically do an index. We can talk about if one is desired. That's what we're trying to do is accommodate, I think, through the definition of those terms that you see show up in each of the chapters, trying to get that to be a pretty accessible way for people to understand in terms of searching out specific terms. I think we tend to have users rely more on sort of the find and search functions, which are very able and capable within these documents. But if it is so desired by the committee, we can talk about an index, or if what type of index might be most useful. But unless instructed to do so, we would not put one together on our own. And then in terms of bibliography and sources, that is a layer, that and captioning of tables and photographs, a layer of information that has not yet made it into many of the drafts that you've seen. And I think the ambition in terms of accomplishing that is one where we would prefer to have sources noted as much as possible on the pages in which they need to be noted, and or in the actual text of where such and such source, like US Census says this sort of data fact, rather than do endnotes or a bibliography at the end. I think it makes the document more accessible and more sort of, it builds up the trustworthiness if people can just see exactly where things came from and don't have to chase around superscript 1 or wherever and figure out what that is. It's we also, I would say, have, in terms of those references, probably a less of a standard comparatively to like academic or scientific journaling, and I think that therefore we will not have, like, every sentence will not have a source. For example, it will show up where the data has been pulled from a certain place, or a statement has been made based upon another source, but not every sentence, as you might see in a scholarly work, will have a note of reference. Good points, though. So on next steps, the other big next step to notice is that because we would be in the comment period and sort of at a point where we're just trying to gather that information, we don't anticipate a December committee meeting. And then also, because of the length of the comment period and what I talked about with logistics, there would not be a January committee meeting either. So the next one would be a February 2022 committee meeting. And I know that you're still nonetheless dedicating a lot of time to this process, and we appreciate that. And you'll still have your commitment and involvement in the December 4th session. So it's not like you will miss out. And everything, including this meeting's recording, will be up and updated on designingdedham2030.org. And we'll be doing a little bit of sort of website updating and redesign to make sure that all of this information is very clean and accessible for the December 4th event, because we will be referring people to this website as the repository of all things they can download. And that's what I've got for this evening.
Thank you, Josh. Thank you, members. Thank you, committee members. Thanks for hanging in tonight. Lots of homework to continue to do, and it sounds like you've been very diligent in reading through all these chapters. And to think about it, it's a lot of pages you've been digesting. So thank you for that. Now that it's cold out, right? We don't have anything to do, so let's read through the master plan. Perfect timing. So please continue your diligence. Get those comments to Josh. And actually, most importantly, help us spread the word for these events. And as Josh said, we'll be in touch with more details on your role, agendas, I think, talking points, and we look forward to seeing you all on the 4th, of course. Hopefully it'll be a great day and a little on the warm side, so we can hang, people feel a little more comfortable to come to the event. So with that, anyone have any further comments? Jessica? Nope.
No, just thanks, everybody. Thanks. Keep trucking. I know it's, the reading of the sections is dense. So we know that it's a big ask, but it is very important. So I just appreciate everybody doing that.
All right. With that, we're adjourned. Thank you once again. Number 22 meeting. So thank you, everyone.
Great meeting. Good
Thank
night.
you.
Good
Good
night,
night, everyone.
Thank
See
you.
y'all on the 4th.
See you on the 4th.
Good. Bye-bye.